PC gaming remains undefeated. Nintendo now says it has the right to brick your Switch if it thinks you're pirating games or modifying the console. So Nintendo's specific new phrasing, distinct from its prior EULA from 2021, is that you acknowledge that if you fail to comply with the foregoing restrictions, Nintendo may render your Nintendo account, services, and or the applicable Nintendo device permanently unusable, in whole or in part. The restrictions in question are that you may not publish, copy, modify, reverse engineer, lease, rent, decompile, disassemble, distribute, offer, for sale, or create derivative works of any portion of Nintendo account services. Also, you cannot obtain, install, or use any unauthorized copies of Nintendo account services. Bypass, modify, decrypt, defeat, tamper with, or otherwise circumvent any of the functions or protections of the Nintendo account services, including through the use of hardware or software that would cause the Nintendo account services to operate other than accordance with its documentation and intended use. You cannot exploit the Nintendo account services in any manner other than to use them in accordance with the applicable documentation and intended use, in each case without Nintendo's written consent or express authorization, or unless otherwise expressly permitted by applicable law. For context, the same section of the EULA used to read, "You are not allowed to lease, rent, license, publish, copy, modify, adapt, translate, reverse engineer, decompile, or disassemble all or any portion of Nintendo account services without Nintendo's written consent or unless otherwise expressly permitted by applicable law." In Sections 1, I mostly take issue with the prohibitions on copying, modifying, or decompiling software, particularly as it no longer accounts for it being expressly permitted by applicable law, as well as hardware-software modifications that would cause the Nintendo account services to operate other than in accordance with its documented intended use. So no game or hardware modding, no extracting ROMs, something Nintendo continuously asserts we cannot do even though it is a legally protected consumer right, and no dual booting of other OSs. There's also the very legitimate concern of the notoriously heavy-handed company acting on false positives. I don't know what means Nintendo has to detect such activity as kill a console, but I'm getting a clear message. You spend $450 on this hardware, but Nintendo does not think you own it. There are plenty of legitimate reasons to jailbreak or modify a console, to extract a ROM from a game you own. Many original Switch games run better via PC emulation than on the original console, and Nintendo is only just catching up to that capability with the Switch 2's potentially compromised backwards compatibility. Even more pressing is the inevitable discontinuation of proprietary online services like we saw recently with 3DS and Wii U. Just before that was finalized, Nintendo pushed an update to 3DS consoles, which made them harder to jailbreak. This is also something that makes Nintendo's subscription-based access to its classic games library all the more galling to me. And Nintendo's new EULA update, it now explicitly warns that it may discontinue its online services in the face of such unreliability. User modification of a device to ensure it remains fully functional is a perfectly reasonable solution. And there's even more in the EULA that's worth flagging, as pointed out by GameFile. A change in the wording of EULA for minors that place responsibility on their legal guardians seems to designed to further head off embarrassing lawsuits like the infamous Joy-Con drift ones, ensuring such cases are forced into arbitration. Nintendo also joins in an unfortunate trend we can't even escape on PC, explicitly spelling out that we do not own our games, and instead only license them. Going beyond legitimate hardware modifications, I'm a firm believer that piracy is a much of a question of service and convenience, as finance and Nintendo's moves to consolidate its own control of products people legitimately purchased are inconvenient, annoying impositions that will annoy fans and drive away customers. Amid the ongoing campaign against emulation, Nintendo continues to throw its muscle around by generation-defining sales success of the original Switch, but also clearly threatened by the rise of PC handhelds and emulators, which run its own games better than the original hardware, and rumblings of future Xbox and PlayStation portables. I feel vindicated in my assessment that the Switch 2 is all stick and no carrot, lacking truly exciting industrial design innovations, except the Joy-Con mouse, which I actually quite like, or tech hardware improvements to set the console apart from a more crowded handheld market. The Switch 2 can only rely on name recognition, customer inertia, and console-exclusive games to move units, much like its living room-bound rival, the PlayStation 5. All three console manufacturers have well and truly left behind the plug-and-play, it-just-works convenience that used to set them apart from PCs. That last embarrassment aside, these obvious impositions are a big part of why I'm largely a desktop and exclusive PC player. I want to understand, modify, and be able to use the hardware I purchase for as long as I see fit, not be beholden to the proprietary services of a notoriously consumer-unfriendly company. So in closing, make a wise decision. Don't give Nintendo any more of your hard-earned money. Just go ahead and play games on something else where you actually get the game and you own the game and you're not dependent on Nintendo and what they're going to do with their device later on, because it's not yours when you buy it. At the end of the day, they own it, they own the games, and they're just giving you the privilege of playing those games as long as they decide that they want to do that. I'm not okay with that. You shouldn't be either. So, hey everybody, have a great day. Leave a thumbs up. Like and subscribe if you like this video. Catch you later.